No way! You can actually hoon this thing! We are charging 1.3 kilowatts, ripping 15. What a monster! So let's just do a quick acceleration. Nose comes up. Whoa! Something happens at 45 to 50 miles an hour where it's like, here's everything. Yeah, we were just beached a little bit there, but it's not a problem. It really is interesting to feel the powertrain distribution in this situation. We'll come up a little bit left, make it a little bit less shallow for the car. Again, standing on the throttle. This is where I need a bit more juice. There it goes. Figured it out. Carry some momentum up, and we've cleared the obstacle for the most part. I really think it needs to get to that lock situation and give you more power a little bit quicker because my foot was on the floor. It has the capability. The software can improve over time though. Thank you to our sponsor, Iona. With over 100 EV charging locations now open to customers, Iona is reimagining what public charging should be in the US. Reliable, fast, and easy to use. Every Iona rechargery is built with the customer in mind. Hello and welcome to another Out of Spec Reviews video, and welcome to the new Rivian R2. I am attending Rivian's second drive program for this vehicle, so we are going to be able to drive this vehicle on the road and off-road to really evaluate everything you guys want to know, everything I want to know about the most important electric car launch of the year in North America. I am so excited as a multiple Rivian owner and EV enthusiast to see what Rivian has cooked up for their much less expensive and maybe even better electric car that is launching right now. So it's Rivian R2 first drive time. All the nerd stuff coming, low speed pedal calibration, motor cogging, clutch disconnect, reconnect feeling, off-road regen, drag control, articulation, everything you could expect, powertrain management stuff coming in this video. I'm going to get you all the nerd stuff. And here it is, guys. I have been waiting for this moment to drive the new Rivian R2 all year. And I've already shot a full tour of this vehicle, so I'll leave that linked in the description below. So I'm not going to go through all of the specs and interior size because we've done all that. I've shown you how much amazing legroom there is in this thing. I've shown you how the rear glass drops behind it. I've kept it down all drive this afternoon. It's been so nice to just have the airflow breeze through the vehicle out here on the off-road trails. I've shown you all the underfloor storage space that you get. I've shown you the front trunk. And of course, we've discussed the 88 kilowatt hour usable battery pack with 4695 cells as a structural member. It's a 400 volt system architecture, which is kind of a shame. I really would have loved to see some high power charging. You know, we're just got back from China where I charged a car in like 7 minutes, 8 minutes to full. And here this is like, you know, just under 30 minutes from 10 to 80%, which is totally livable for most people. I think this is going to be just a totally fine and acceptable charging performance vehicle, but I've already gone through all of that with you. This video is all about the driving impression. What is it like behind the wheel? How does it feel when you actually drive the car and tip into the throttle? And it's just going to be a pretty long experiential video. I'm out here at Rivian's event in Utah and want to say a big thank you to them for allowing me to come out here and experience the car to get all of the details for you. We're driving two different versions of the R2, both being the top end performance, but with a different wheel and tire package. We're going to start driving on the 21-inch sort of range focused wheel and tire. I wouldn't even call it a performance wheel and tire, as you'll learn they don't have that much grip. And then we will also take out the all-terrains here, which still look great and feature a fantastic design and great BF Goodrich new tire that has been wonderful off-road. I sound pretty positive right now because I just got out of driving it, and that's true. This is really, overall, if you don't want to watch the whole video, a great driving vehicle. Let me tell you a little bit of highlights, things I'm going to be looking for throughout our evaluation today, and then we'll get into the driving portion. So while I would love to test absolutely everything for you in this video, that's just not going to be possible. We aren't going to be towing the 4,400 pounds maximum that this vehicle can tow. We're not going to be on a racetrack. We're not going to be mud bogging this thing. It's going to be just a quick first impression of driving it on the road, on the highway, using the hands-free driver assistance system, looking for noise, looking for anything that would cause our viewers, you guys, to say, hey, I need to not buy this car. That's my biggest thing. I want to look for any gotchas. Is there something Rivian messed up or forgot about? The next thing we're going to be looking for is just how it performs compared to other vehicles that are commonly referenced with this one. The biggest being its bigger brother, the R1. This is a next generation electrical architecture motor layout than the R1. So it's actually pushing a little bit ahead, but then pulls back in terms of suspension design because this uses a pretty standard McPherson strut up front. It has physical sway bars that are non-adjustable, no air suspension. It does have a single valve adjustment on the damper, which really comes in handy in the performance trim here, which I would highly recommend getting if you're on the fence. And it really is just a damper adjustment. So, you're going to give up a lot of the extreme area of capability of the R1, but R2 still needs to do kind of everything pretty well. This is a one-car solution for many people. And what I'll do is I'll just take you on a quick tour of the interior, a quick reminder of the software, and then we'll get right into driving. But ultimately, we'll be driving the top spec R2 that's available at launch. It's going to be pretty fast, pretty sporty. And don't worry, guys, I am going to be buying one of these cars so that we can do everything with it, really all the nerd stuff in the near future. So stay tuned to the channel. We'll have a ton of R2 comparison tests, off-road, on-road, drifting, you name it. We'll do everything we can with it. And I can't wait to see your comments to see what you want us to do. Obviously, my videos are long and detailed, and occasionally I repeat the same point from time to time. But sorry, not perfect. So let's get into driving. Inside the R2 here, you'll notice a couple things are different between this and the R1. The first being the software looks a little different. My wheel is actually turned, and since I don't have the key, I can't get it out of the way. You have new screens here and here, but a new logic as well. So ultimately, this screen's pretty dusty because we've been off-roading, but that's the way a Rivian should be. You have 3 off-road modes: all-terrain, soft sand, rally. I heard rally in stability off is just going to be magic. Super fun, really rear biased, absolute hoonigan of a car. So I can't wait to experience that. And that should be all pretty good. I can't switch to on-road right now, but you'll hear me reference all-purpose, which is the general drive mode, sport mode, snow mode, and conserve mode. And all of these will be designed for the area that you're driving. For example, conserve should back off some HVAC, prioritize keeping the vehicle rear drive most of the time. I'll explain that in a second. And overall, extend your range, given your driving style, elongate the throttle pedal, for example. But there's some real key differences between this and the R1 in terms of powertrain choices. So let's run through that. You join me here at the front axle of the Rivian R2. And this was previously the primary axle for the Rivian R1 platform, which meant it primarily was front-wheel drive, especially in the dual motor variants like Scott's car. And then, it would always drive front-wheel drive. And then as you give more power and you saturate the front motor's power, it will blend in the rear motor, connect the clutch, and bring in the rear motor. And I figure a lot of people that may not be nerds might be watching this video, and I need to just briefly explain clutch connects and disconnects and why this is kind of an important topic. You see, Rivian has chosen to go with 2 permanent magnet motors for their R2. This is a very power-dense type of electric machine. It also simplifies manufacturing, so they don't have to make a permanent magnet and an induction motor on the front axle. A downside to permanent magnet motors is they always create an electric field as the car is moving. So at light throttle, constant state, when you don't need the power of 2 motors, you essentially have the downside of having to run both of them. Whereas in an induction motor, because there's no magnets on the rotor, it does not create a magnetic field as you're cruising. You can essentially just shut it off. Now, that's not to say that an induction motor doesn't have drag forces. There's windage losses, there's gear train losses, but you don't have to deal with the complexity of a clutch. Rivian decided, hey, let's get the best of both worlds. Let's put a permanent magnet motor on both axles, but then we will disconnect completely so the gear train stops moving. All of those losses go away when you're at steady state cruising. And in the R1, they would disconnect the rear axle and reconnect the rear axle, making the front the primary axle. In the R2, it's the correct way. This is your primary motive force on the back, which means it's always pushing along. It just leads to a more premium, more sporty, more just better feeling vehicle. It's not always trying to pull itself everywhere, and you can feel little things through the wheel, and front wheel drive just is not premium. Having a rear bias system, much better. So they did that for R2. This is now a rear permanent magnet, fully connected, no clutch disconnect on the rear. The front now disconnects in the R2, and that is an absolute game changer. Not only because it's always going to have power going to the rear axle if you want to drive a little sporty or just even for stability. The front axle will be able to snap in, and Rivian tells me we're going to drive it. I've already driven it. It's a million times better. It just gets up, connects, and boogies, and it's no problem whatsoever. So a big shout out to the Rivian Powertrain team, to Luke, to Mason, to everyone else over there who made this car drive and connect and do the proper drivetrain stuff that the R1 should have. This is no longer a concern. The Maximus drive units in here, I'll have a segment at the end of the video where or it'll be a separate video, I'm not sure, but where I go through the Maximus drive unit. It's an oil-cooled, direct oil-cooled electric machine, silicon carbide inverter on the rear, silicon up front. It makes sense. Put IGBTs up front because it's used such a little percentage of the time, and usually at hard throttle when you want that front axle working, you can just run IGBTs, save a little bit of cost. This is the efficiency axle, and so that needs silicon carbide. They really did it properly here. They sized everything well. The battery being 88 kilowatt hours is very positive size. And the only thing we're not going to be able to get today is really an impression on efficiency or range. This is going to be much more of an impression of driving dynamics. I will, of course, run one in a range test as soon as possible. Was that too long of an explanation of powertrain stuff? I didn't even cover half the things I want to cover, but I feel like you guys want to know how it drives. So anyway, we can do explainer videos for hours into the future, but I'm just so happy to be here in Utah with Rivian, driving the car on their second drive program, and what a dream. Before we get to driving, I just want to mention, if I didn't make it clear enough, R2 launches in the top spec performance model, which has that 87.9 kilowatt hour usable battery pack. Got to be low 90 gross, 656 horsepower, 609 pound-feet. That's quite a bit of power in this class. 3.6 seconds 0 to 60. Very spicy. I believe it needs launch control to get 3.6 seconds 0 to 60, which is not enabled in the cars we're driving yet, but that will come soon. Hopefully I'll have a video coming to you as soon as that software update rolls. They say 330 miles of EPA estimated range, and the starting price, just to lay it all out nice and easy, is $57,990 without delivery. Is basically 60 grand starting by the time you do anything. It's a $1,495 destination and freight charge. So you're still under 60 for a brand new performance trim, dual motor, all-wheel drive with over 650 horsepower. I mean, that's a great deal. That's a pretty good deal. Factor in still the off-road cred, 9.6 seconds of ground clearance, 9.6 inches of ground clearance. I'm just filming all of this way later, obviously. This is right before the video goes live. 10 to 80% in 29 minutes is the claimed manufacturer charging time. And we now have warranty information on all configurations of the R2. By the way, I have a whole video on the R2 standard on our Bits channel going live right now. And towards the end of this video, I have a bunch more information on the subcomponents of the vehicle. So stay tuned or skip over to that. 4-year, 50,000 mile comprehensive warranty, battery and drive system warranty is 8 years and 120,000 miles. Those are very good warranties. 4-year 50, pretty standard. 8-year 120, pretty strong. That's more than the minimum requirements are in certain states. So shout out to Rivian for giving a good warranty. They've always given a great warranty on all of their products, and that does not seem to be going away for the R2. This is pretty solid. Good morning, viewers. My first time in the Rivian R2. So let's get this set up. I'm going to slide to activate and go through the initial setup process here. So get yourself situated. So I'm going to get started doing that. So my seating position on the ground feels like a great seating position, like that. Explore the halo wheels later, but I do just want to pull the wheel out. So I'm going to push the haptic halo wheel back with my fingers that way and pull it all the way out. Wow! Guys, I can't tell you how long I've been waiting to drive this car, and how excited I am to experience it. So let's save that position. Mirrors, I'm going to do, okay, so left mirror works the same as like any 4-wheel scroll position. You're just using the halo wheels, which honestly felt pretty good in this demonstration, but I can feel the electric motors backing off. What will we call our R2? We got to name it. We should name it Klee, which was my nickname growing up. K-L-E-E, Klee. All right, let's set up your digital key. Don't need to, we'll do that later. I've actually got the launch edition key right here that they have provided for the car. Explore autonomy, we know how that works. And I've got to go through to finish setup by hitting let's go. Now we are completely set up. HVAC's making quite a bit of noise up top on the windshield there. We'll turn everything on, except the interior camera, Rivian Assistant, that's fine. Confirm choices, the car is now turned on. Quick conversation, then we'll be good to go. All right, so we've got the nav set up. We're gonna have to turn the lady off, quick one tap. I've noticed in a couple R2s I've been in over the couple days that I've been here, the screen brightnesses are pretty always set low. I'm gonna brighten this up, there we go. Now I can actually see something. Let's run through a quick settings thing just to make sure the car is set up how I want it. We have 100% battery health. The car has 192 miles on it, so it's freshy fresh. I am so excited. We've got everything set. Lane departure warning. I'll turn vibration off, and we'll turn lane keeping assist on. I'm curious to see if it pushes against us much. When we get on the back road, maybe I'll turn that off. Displays, we're at 86% state of charge. Everything else, pretty good to go. Drive mode selection is going to be the big one. I want to start in everyday comfort, soft ride feel, just to get a sense of how the car drives. And I think we're pretty much there. In terms of climate, there is no dog mode, no pet mode, no camp mode, no keep climate mode available yet. That is all coming very shortly after launch, so I'm excited for that all to come, because they will do it. The rest of the Rivians have it. They just haven't adapted it for this car yet. So I wouldn't make a buying decision off of that, but it is kind of odd that the car is launching without some basic features you would expect. Cooled seats, heated seats. I'm a little bit disappointed with all the HVAC noise coming from up here. And I do have, wow, cooled seats rip. That's amazing. I just kicked them up to full. They make a ton of noise and just cold air instantly. That's good. Yeah, even in low fan, there must be some sort of air passageway coming out over the windshield. Let's deactivate that. Yeah, so if you take the air coming off the windshield, which I wouldn't need in this particular instance, that whole noise goes away. That blower fan or that passageway makes quite a bit of noise up there. But here I am sitting in the Rivian R2 for the first time. There's so much to soak in, so much to explore, and so much excitement from my side to drive this car. I've got my phone set on the wireless charger up here, so that's working out nicely. I am lucky enough to have a car to myself, so we can do some performing driving and do some longitudinal stuff. I'm really curious about full brakes, full acceleration, and how that all feels, and everything in between, all the blending points. all the feeling of everything. Battery pack's relatively cool. It's at 64 degrees. I'm actually going to probably start manually preconditioning the car. Let's see if it will do anything. Maybe after we do our low speed driving. The problem is if you manually precondition the car and then do low speed calibration, the motors run slightly out of phase to heat up, and it can cause just not the best impression of NVH and ride and feel. So what we're going to do is actually keep that off, but to get maximum power later, we're going to want it nice and warm. I can see the charging curve here looks really bad. They must have had a cold battery, peaking at 70 kilowatts at 70%, dipped to 50. Looks like the battery warmed up and then was doing 70 kilowatts at 82%. That is not bad performance. That is not bad, but this was just a top charge from 70 to 96%, 93% they brought it up to. 38 kilowatts at 93% during the last charging session. So it took them 25 minutes to go from 70 to 93%. Ooh. But again, battery probably wasn't preconditioned in that instance. It's time to drive this thing. I am so excited. I don't even have words. So, obviously, I've walked you through what the car is. You guys know everything that's going to come. It's all up to feeling out how this thing performs when we get to feel like that brake-by-wire situation. I'm so curious about the pedals. Accelerator pedal tuning. We're in park. No kick-down switch. Pretty light accelerator pedal. And a much shorter accelerator pedal travel than the R1, which I really appreciate. You don't have to like stretch to put your foot down. So I think we're pretty much good to go. So I'm going to put my foot on the brake. I'm going to back up a little bit. Oh my God. We are driving an R2. Great one pedal drive right off the bat. Feels really nice. Just tipping in reverse. On forwards. Ooh. Typical but different Rivian feel to the other cars. Totally different from other Rivians. Softer. Less abrupt one pedal drive. Wow. Really could almost get, when you come off the pedal, like we're on a hill, so it's trying to apply some creep torque a tiny bit and then come to zero. Yeah, really it should get down to zero just even a slight smidge quicker than that. You can see this family's over here like, what are these things? But we are good to go. You can see it dragged the brake when he pulled away a little bit as well. So let's go, driving the R2 for the first time. No way. This is so exciting. I am absolutely thrilled to be able to have the opportunity to do this. And a big thank you to everyone, including Tanya. Thank you.
Quick snap. Bye.
Bye. See you later. That is my friend Tanya, Peebles, everyone over here, all the folks that engineer this thing and coordinate everything. They're just awesome people. Blind spot warning already going. And we are off in the R2 for the very first time. I am so excited to be able to drive this car. Why am I so excited to drive a mid-size SUV? Well, it's from a brand I really enjoy, and I already have so much that I have to say to you guys about what we're experiencing here. And the instant impression is the steering wheel should be round, not flat top and flat bottom. That is silly, but it is a way for you to see the screen, at least when you're cruising down the highway. It feels pretty big. It feels wide, and it has a nice long hood out the front. So it really has this pretty impressive viewpoint out of everything here, which is very commendable that you get such a big boy, full-size SUV feeling from the viewpoint out. It really doesn't feel that different from R1 in terms of the view. It totally drives differently than R1, though. It is not even close in the initial impression of how this thing drives. We are going to have to find a little spot to pull over and just do some of our own testing, but I'm just kind of with the herd here, feeling things out. Oh, wow. I have it set to soft, and it is soft. But there's an initial impact jolt that you get, probably because we're on the big wheels and tires on the 21s, 22s, 21s, the big all road wheels. And so, wow, so much to explain. So much to explain. But the initial R2 impression is big. It drives bigger than you would expect. Like a Model Y feels like a pretty small, nimble car. This has a big hood out the front. And I actually like that. It gives you a very kind of Range Rover vibe. We're out here in Park City, cruising around. Some of you guys may recognize a lot of these roads from our videos. We've done a lot of road trips out this way, a lot of drives out this way, and we've done, I think, maybe even this exact route we're doing today. So it's so cool to be back in a car that is brand new and sort of unfamiliar at the moment. Already here at 60 miles an hour, I am blown away with how quiet it is. That's a real key takeaway. We should drop the speed a little bit because we're in a construction zone, but already just a feeling of solidity, quietness is very good. I have Volvo V60 Polestar, shout out that guy. I have a quick reservation, initial just question in my head, where some of the big impacts from the bump, it almost felt like the tire was not staying on the ground. Now, we do have the suspension set to full soft, so maybe it wasn't totally keeping up, but the big initial input to the vehicle felt a little harsher than I would expect. I'm also getting quite a bit of road texture, all of this grittiness to come through the seat. So you're not in a like disconnected air suspension. When you drive an R1S, for example, and you put that thing in full, let's just say comfort mode, full softy soft mode, it totally isolates you from a lot of these secondary road imperfections, which is, high frequency, low amplitude type surfacing. And this definitely, you get a little bit more of that surfacing in, but these are also the type of surfaces that really push and exacerbate a boominess problem, a resonance problem in the car. And I'm not noticing a resonance problem, and I don't even think we have a real rear parcel shelf. I don't know if this car is offered with one. So that's very impressive from an NVH standpoint, just how quiet it feels. I'm going to duck out of the loop here really quick and just pop over to this parking lot, because I want to try some nerd stuff in an open, safe, empty parking lot. Because that's what you guys watch Out of Spec for. Ooh, really nice on the head toss pulling in there. That's cool. So, biggest thing to talk about is one pedal driving. We have 3 settings for Regen. Regen High, Standard, and Low. Now, I'm a pretty big Regen fan. I think a lot of you who drive electric cars love Regen, just like me. And having high recuperation is awesome. The problem in current Rivians and many electric cars that don't use a brake-by-wire system is if you back the recuperation, the Regen, down to, let's say, low, then you have to use the brake pedal to slow down if you want to slow down more. And in most cars, that transitions you to friction brakes, which means you're wasting energy. In this car, actually similar to the Tesla Model Y, Mach-E, Ioniq, others, the new Model Y, I should mention, this uses a brake-by-wire. So even if you keep Regen in low, it will, when you hit the brake pedal, it will still prioritize as much Regen as possible before it switches to friction brakes. So that means there's a blend point in the brake pedal, which is something that's completely new for Rivian, is adding a blend point. This is also something completely new. Brand new motors, 2 permanent magnet motors. We've discussed those. And then it's a rear primary axle, which means I'm going to be keeping an eye on this screen over here to the right of me. Hopefully you guys can just see it out of the corner of your eye to see when the rear motor's engaged, when the front motor's engaged. But I'm first going to start with Regen in high, which is how I think most EV drivers will drive this car. All-purpose high Regen. So let's see. We do have all-wheel drive capability going. And there's the front motor's disconnected. Now I'm going to lift off. It's full Regen completely on the rear, dragging the rear, and then smoothly comes to a stop, and then transitions to auto hold. You do not hear the brake pedal suck in when you go to auto hold. And the reason you don't hear the brake pedal suck in when you go to auto hold is because brake pedal's not connected to anything. There is a little plunger if you stand on the brake pedal that will get you right into the hydraulic braking system. But for the most part, it's a completely electric actuated switch that you're just manipulating with your foot, which is really kind of cool. So amazing one pedal drive characteristics, even considering they're regenning and dragging on the rear wheels. Now that means that Rivian needs to have really good regen drag control so that you don't, in snowy conditions, lift off and cause a yaw moment by locking the rear tires. I did a whole video on that this winter with some old electric cars like the old i3, and then some brand new electric cars like the new Tesla Model 3 rear drive. And Tesla just has amazing powertrain management, many hundreds of changes per second that it can adjust the drive unit output. I'm hoping Rivian can do the same. We'll have to wait until we can get this back to the track and simulate those conditions to find sort of, I would say, abuse case or odd case to make sure that there's enough safety built into the system, which I'm sure there is. So let's back regen down to low now. Let's see what that feels like. We'll do the same thing. Accelerate always starts in all-wheel drive. It disconnects around 15 miles an hour, maybe slightly before. I'm off. We're not going to slow down in time. On the brake pedal. Nice smooth stop blending in with the friction brake pedal. That felt really good. And it definitely goes down to still quite a bit of regen. You still always retain one pedal drive, which is awesome. There it switches to auto hold. But it's nice that it adds more regen when you get onto the brake pedal. Now, another thing that's really hard for electric cars to do is to rock forward and back, to put the motors into, this rotation and then backwards rotation. There's half shafts that could ting. There's gear sets that can knock. There's electric motors that need to switch the way the inverter's actually powering everything. And so this is a really hard thing for electric motors to do, is to come in and out of drive and reverse. And based off of how the R2 is doing it, it's not bad. It's quick. It gets it over with. But I do just feel a slight thud every time I do it. Every time I rock the car, a little dunk dunk. I'll be quiet for a second. Oh yeah, you can get it shimmying in the back, and then you reach your speed that you can't go back in reverse. So there is a lot of, not necessarily drivetrain lash, but enough that it's noticeable back there. Is that a problem? No, because like most people are just gonna pop into drive. Ooh, that was interesting. I was giving it more throttle and it blended friction brake. Ooh, that was not good. My foot was going down and the car was slowing down, so I ended up giving more. So we're just gonna back out of a parking space, right? Foot on the brake, into drive, boom, and you don't notice anything. Works really well. All right, so that's some low speed, nerdy nerd stuff for you guys that I think is at least interesting to me. Hopefully it's interesting to you. It's really important that a car drives well at low speed. An electric car, most electric cars can drive fine on the highway, but when you drive a lot of Chinese electric cars and cars that aren't thoughtfully tuned, that's where you run into some of those issues, is in those low speed calibrations. So far, driving this feels familiar to Rivian, but it is a completely different experience to the R1 line. Totally different. So let's just roll into it here. Ooh, couldn't even feel the front motor connect. So I'm completely rear drive right now. I want to know at what point of saturation will it blend in the front axle. That's 50% power on the rear. Ooh, it's still pushing hard on the rear. Ooh, you get to about 60%, maybe 65% saturation on the rear drive unit before it blends the front end. And I have to say, that blending, when it did bring the front end, the only thing I could feel was just kind of the torque steer, not really torque steer, but I could tell the front wheels were working. You just have an idea of what was going on there. That was really interesting. I could also change drive modes right here with my scroll wheels. I'm trying to change it to map view. How do I get it to not autonomy, map? Maybe it's not letting me switch, don't know. All right, so let's get the front motor connected. I'm going complete coasting, 45 miles an hour, quick wide open throttle hit. Woo, fast and smooth and not a thunk. And it gets disconnected real quick as well. Whoa, this is really well tuned from a drivetrain perspective. And it felt pretty sporty in that instance right there as well. I'm gonna quick give the regen a try. It just goes full regen on the rear axle, which is kind of cool because you still get a ton of steering when you do that. So let's load it up in a corner, make sure the front end's disconnected. Full regen. It kind of tucks the nose in a little bit when it regens like that. And we do have to turn left here. The steering wheel's odd. I don't hate it as much as I do in other cars, but I do think it's weird that it kind of falls away and goes to a flat top there. Another front end connection moment. Let's go. Ooh, a little slow on that one, but not bad. It feels real fast. I haven't even let it get up to full power yet. I've just kind of let off, and wow, it definitely feels like it's got some juice under the pedal, which is awesome and to be expected for their performance model. There we go. Now I can put it to maps. These felt much better in the showroom than they do in practice, the scroll wheel things. It's sometimes hard to just get a good click in. They may have made it harder to press, which makes it almost scroll away from my finger when I want to make a selection. It's almost like I wish they had a flat section here and they didn't scroll all the way around. That might just take some getting used to. There's so much to absorb here. Well, as we sit at the world's longest traffic light, I have to say there's some really amazing positive things about the R2 already. First of all, it feels eager. It feels pretty well calibrated. The low speed stuff may just need another final pass through, like where I was giving it more throttle and it was going into the brake pedal for a split second, not really knowing what I wanted. That's kind of the stuff that the Germans would have all tuned out. The cooled seat, I have it on the medium setting, might be the strongest cooled seat I've ever experienced. And I've experienced some Kia cooled seats, which they're known for being pretty cool. Now we're trying universal hands-free with new selections here, where I can change the drive style on the inside of the stock and then the speed by twisting this up. Now let's say you accidentally push up on the stock. Okay, so it's not going to just go into neutral if you're like, I'm trying to raise the speed or lower the speed. You have to push the stock away, of course, to cancel. And that's very similar. One pull does adaptive cruise, two pulls puts you into lane centering. And now I'm just in conserve mode. So conserve mode, I would think, would just prioritize more rear wheel drive and really try not to blend in the front axle as much as possible. So let's see if that's the case. No, it still blends in the front. So I'm not really sure what conserve mode does. And the drive modes are certainly going to change and get better over time, and maybe even the philosophies behind them will change, but maybe it's not as much full power, but it still feels pretty great. Just driving in all purpose for the most part. And then we'll try sport on a good twisty road. Wow. Car feels dead quiet. That's really the most impressive thing to me here is the quietness of the cabin. You have at least up to 60 miles an hour, no wind noise, and a pretty nice isolated road noise. And we're on pretty coarse pavement, so if you're on smooth pavement, it would be impressive, I think. Back on universal hands-free. I'm going to spend some more time with this, and then I really want to play around with the braking system. That's a real key component. And then, of course, discuss on-road and off-road in this video as well. But so much information to share with you guys about how everything feels, how it's tuned, how the bushings, feelings are in terms of the whole suspension and steering system. We're going to need some more roads to get there, but this is my very initial impression driving the car, and it's very well done. I mean, very, very, very well done. Nothing here is making me less excited about getting ours. I just can't wait to keep driving it. So that's what we're going to do in this video, keep driving it. I'll be with you guys in a little bit, but for now, I'm just going to go drive, enjoy, find things to share with you, and be back momentarily. Looks like we are going to merge up onto a highway here, so I'm really curious about just rolling into it. Not flat launch mode, but just in all-purpose, giving it the beans, feeding in. You can feel the front motor working, barely getting even 90% of the power. It adds more power the faster you go. It's got all the juice in the world, and another nice thing is just how much shorter the accelerator pedal is from R1. It means that you can get it to wide open without sort of stretching your leg all the way out, which incentivizes the opportunity to really rip on it. This is where I'm really curious about noise. Let's get the speed up here. The front axle connection is awesome. Rivian really learned how to make that good. At least, I'll see if it does any weird stuff, but the initial impression is just awesome. Front axle clutch disconnect tuning. Here at 75 miles an hour. Much more wind noise than at 60. It's also windier outside. And it's certainly not the quietest car. I would be really curious to drive this back to back with new Model Y. There's one right in front of me. Can I borrow your car? And the reason I keep making that comparison is that's its main competitor really in this segment. They are for different people. They are different vibes, completely different vibes. But I think a lot of Model Y owners are going to be interested in the R2. And I think there's a lot of people that are on the fence between the two. And a lot of people that might be pulled from going from a Model Y into an R2, which I'm excited about. And I almost sort of fall into that category, actually. So it's not the quietest thing, but it's not annoyingly loud. It's pretty well damped. It feels pretty good. Come on, make a lane change. There we go. Their highway driver assistance is phenomenal. It's awesome. We've used it on road trips all over. It's a really good hands-free highway system. They do not have a city option at the moment, which I think is a main detriment point for me. A lot of people are just looking for highway driver assistance in their cars. I think a lot of those people haven't experienced sort of the relaxation you get when you have a full self-driving system like Tesla offers, their supervised system, because you don't even have to think about where to turn. Like here, I'm keeping an eye on 6 miles to the exit. When you drive FSD, you don't even worry about that. So I get it. A lot of people don't want that. I do. And so I know Rivian's working on it, and I can't wait for point-to-point level 2 autonomy to launch in this car, they claim by year end. So that could mean December, end of December. Regardless, within just a few months from launch, this car's autonomy is going to greatly improve according to the Rivian folks, which we can only hope that's the case, and we'll keep our fingers crossed that that's true. But you should never buy based off future promise. You should only buy based off of what's available today. And we already have seen Rivian promise level 3 autonomy in the Gen 1 R1s and then completely abandon that whole system. So just buy it if you're happy with what it is today. If you're not happy with the autonomy, don't buy it. That's my recommendation. Sitting here on the highway, the ride comfort is wonderful. It has a really good mannerism to it where it's just soft enough where I can almost feel it not float but really absorb some of the bigger bumps, and just a really great mannerism. So much less mass, so much less body than the R1. Even during the lane changes, it just gets over with. You're not like, oh, let me pick this big thing up and then bump the hydraulic roll compensation up. And R1's so impressive, don't get me wrong, but there's something just nice about having a mechanically lighter, physically lighter vehicle that's tuned still pretty well to go down the road. It's set up really great for cruising. Sitting here on the hands-free system, I could spend all day and do thousands of miles in this car over a week. The seats are incredibly comfortable. For me so far, I have lumbar controls, no massage, but R1 doesn't even have massage. And it just feels like a really great highway cruiser. Quick flick here to bump the speed up 5 miles an hour. Off we go past this car's, I would argue, main competitor, the Tesla Model Y. He's just not paying any attention on FSD. Hilarious. You should always monitor the car around you. Initiate a right turn in the middle of a turn and it gets it done. And just so much less fuss. You can just see that little wheel input to make the change, and it's not compensating for a big R1S to get through the lane change. Wow. Really looking forward to ripping this thing on the back road, but I gotta say, Rivian really seems to have done this right. I would have preferred a bit more noise isolation, but if that's my only complaint so far, I think they did themselves a really nice job. We're gonna try the performing stuff, which is where it could all just fall apart. This new braking system could be terrible. So let's go see if their new brake-by-wire, the one-box design that they're using, very similar to Porsche Macan electric, by the way, in theory of operation. So let's go see how that goes in the R2. But right now, I am absolutely loving this. There's room to spread out. The cooled seats, I keep coming back to it. Insane. I am freezing. I love that. Shout out to whoever did the cooled seats, because that's amazing. I should try the heated seats as well. So let's go full rip on heat and steering wheel heating, see if there's any dead zones in the wheel. And yeah, let's go driving on some good roads. This thing's clearly a highway cruiser, without question. It can do all the highway cruising you need it to. I do think, I don't know if the hood's vibrating or if wet, but there's slightly distracting amount of hood vibration on that road. Feels pretty quick. Let's try sport mode. Now, launch control is coming in a software update, I'm told. So let's just do a quick acceleration. Nose comes up. Whoa! Something happens at 45 to 50 miles an hour where it's like, here's everything. And my guess is launch control gives you that power output through the whole sweep from down low. Because just rolling into it, it's just like more. And I actually really love electric cars that are tuned to give you a bit more power with the speed, because it's almost incentivizing you to keep your foot in it. A lot of cars like if you take a Plaid, for example, incredibly impressive, no question. But when you hit it at 40 miles an hour, you get a big whoa, and then it kind of trails off a little bit. And you're like, okay, it's losing kind of its effectiveness. And then you're like, oh, well, I've already had the fun. I've experienced it. This is like, here's more. It's like, whoa, just keep staying in it because there's more good to come. It's a great encouraging attribute to make a car more fun to drive, in my opinion. Heated seats work great even heating across the whole seat back, and the heated steering wheel has no dead zones except right at the bottom, as far as I can tell. So also shout out to Rivian on a good heated steering wheel. The climate control needs some work in this car. It's clearly not finalized. For example, like the sun's over here on this side, and it was starting to heat up here, and the fan dropped, and I'm like, no, you're doing the wrong thing. So it needs another round of climate control, which has kind of always been a Rivian problem, to not get HVAC totally right off the go. So I'm hoping they can get all that dialed in, because it has to do sun solar load tracking and compensate for that around the car. There's no way it can't do that. That's just a basic requirement when you have such a greenhouse like this thing has. First thing I will do on ours is just get it tinted, because there's a lot of big glass in this car, and it's going to get HOT in the North Carolina summers in here. Really impressed with the power output, especially at speed. That is incredibly impressive how powerful this thing is. Like here, I tried to pull back on the left scroll wheel, and I ended up turning the volume up. So you need to like position your fingers perfectly, and then I can select. I think old people are going to struggle with these. In principle, and in the showroom when I've experienced them, the scroll wheels work really well, but I've just had at least 10 separate events over the last 2 days where I've done a mispress, and that gets kind of annoying. So we've all been raving about these, including myself, but my initial impression is maybe not as good. Just playing around with the braking system at the moment, and this is not like the best place to do it, but I was really curious to do it because this is kind of slippery pavement, if you will, just like a fine grain pavement. Not good initially. Like, I'm confused. Clearly the car is in all-purpose mode, a rear drive car, which means it's going to prioritize regenning on the rear axle. So the rear tires are already regenning, which means you would need to first bring in front calipers before you bring in the rear. But listen to this. I don't know if you guys will be able to hear it when I just roll into the brakes. I don't know if you heard that, but the little we're not even slowing down that much, but I'm actually already dragging rear brake. Like the rear tires are starting to lock well before we reach the front axle's capability of deceleration performance. And so it's just keeping the rear kind of right at threshold braking. I even heard ABS click in a little bit there to probably try and shuffle some braking force forwards and back off on the rear. But that's not good. I mean, even here, 30 miles an hour, I'm not going to stand on it, but just, no, here it's fine. That was fine. This surface, it doesn't show up in. But then there was a weird vibration he hit, probably from the front clutch disconnect there, that just made a low-end resonance into the cabin. So there's enough here that I'm kind of like, oh no. Again, all of this is software controlled. That's a nice thing about having a software-defined vehicle, is it can all be adjusted. But that really heavy utilization of braking on the rear axle it's kind of just dragging. It's like a dog that, you know, it's dragging its butt all the time. That's what it feels like. We really need to try this at higher speed and in some corners to look at stability. Around town driving, if you're not doing any big brake hits, you're fine. But I would argue even in a medium braking situation, like let's just, oh yeah, the rear's just dragging there. And I can hear it, I can just hear it. Consider me a little bit shocked about that. That's pretty interesting. Shout out to this guy driving the Itasca through a tight intersection. We got to really focus on the brakes. Oof. Well, viewers, I played around a little bit more with the brakes. It's really not a problem when it's distributing the brake force across both axles from a regen perspective, but when it goes full regen in the rear and you lean onto the brake pedal, you just get a ton of tread yaw in the back. Let's play around with handling now. So we don't have too much room to like super rip on, but a little front wheel push there, or a little pull, but it felt pretty natural, open diff lifestyle, so you'll always get where the weight comes off to spin a little bit. But this will be a good opportunity to kind of get a sense of how the car performs, coming in under braking. Whoa, nice power on rotation. It's doing all the right things. Holy smokes, they really did seem to dial this in. Lean it over, full power, just wants to rally out. Yeah, stability control's kind of getting in the way. So let's hold for stability off. I'm actually gonna go ride feel firm. Still feels a little twisty if I'm on, or a little squishy if I'm honest. My bag's kind of flying around, but that's okay. Really lets you get into the brake pedal before it grabs too much ABS. Woo-hoo-hoo-hoo! It's definitely fun. Whoops, got the music coming. It's definitely fun. Definitely fun. Very light in the steering. There's not much front end action going on, but you can cure all of that with throttle pedal. No way! You can actually hoon this thing! So you just have to get it set and then just mat it coming out of a corner. It really doesn't love to turn in. It really needs a lot more front end grip for that kind of stuff, but just here, nice and soft, load it in, change direction, get it on the throttle. Because it's soft, it's pretty easy to pull the weight off the nose, so it's very important that you lean it into a corner when you're under braking. So like, for example, here, it's a tight one. I'm coming in under brakes, get the car turned, and then stab it on the exit. Again, here, just get the car set as I'm learning it, right? Feel the exit, a little hard throttle, power on rotation, coming out of every single corner, just little tiny angles. If you really wanted to have some fun with it, you could absolutely open this thing up and hoon it. And if it is understeering, you just pull off the throttle a tiny bit. Yeah, buddy. Just leaning on it. Feels good. Lots of inside wheel spin though. This is where some limited slip differentials would really come in handy. But I'm just hooning this thing up this road. Let's try full braking action. Standing on it, so I'm all the way in. I mean, really, you feel the weight under the hard braking and acceleration. And also the tires are probably not totally scrubbed in. What a road and what a car. I need to put my bag in the front trunk because it's flying around, and we've already caught up to some of our compadres up here. Brake pedal has almost no ABS feedback in it. And so maybe I shouldn't be as hard on them for really utilizing that back axle. This is a pretty heavy car and it's not that much tire, but this is the performing tire option. It's so easy, like super natural, just to come screaming through here, get it set, a little bit of throttle. I'm just so impressed with it from a dynamics perspective. It just feels totally well sorted. Tons of power. Doesn't need any more power. Needs a little bit more braking feel, but that's what you get with a brake-by-wire system. There's zero kind of steering feedback, so even here between, you know, all the way from just turning normally to understeer, the steering weight doesn't change at all. It's just completely unconnected, which is a totally different experience than R1, which had this amazingly well-connected steering system. It feels stout. It never feels like I'm running into the edge of the electric motor assist, but it's a little bit understeery if you just roll it into a corner normally. You just have to know how to manage the weight, and thankfully the car is soft enough and dynamic enough where it really does let you manage the weight on this thing, which is awesome. So you can just stab it coming out of corners and which I am in no way complaining about. I really need to lock my bag down. What a road, and I'd be really curious on the downhill to see how much better the steering is, because you really do just reach the edge of tire. So look at this, just driving normally. I mean, you really don't feel the weight of the car other than when you're trying to stop it or turn it. And when you turn it on throttle, all the weight goes away and you're just like leaning on that back axle. Yeah, it's just not meant to be a high performance handler, but the fact that it is so good on the road, on the highway, right? It's just like a nice all-day driver, and you can take it up here and with a low degree of driver skill go very quickly, and I would say a very safe way. When you really think of it, evaluating it as an R2 performance, they should either do a little bit more brake-based torque differential so that you would, lock the inside wheel from spinning, or add a limited slip differential on the rear axle. Why is Rivian so against to doing lockers and LSDs? It would make the driving experience a million times better. Imagine this with torque vectoring. You would get all of the power down all of the time. You would get none of this inside wheel spin, and it would just be wonderful. I need to stop, put my bag in the front trunk, because there is a road up here we can do that with. Great. This guy's going like 4 miles an hour, and we have to evaluate the R2 in a performance standpoint. Battery pack came up to 10 fairly quickly. So let's pull right here. Let's adjust our loading situation, and we'll get back to ripping. Interestingly, I can already smell brakes, but that could just be them fresh cooking off the factory coatings and whatnot. All right, let's see, settings wise, we are still in firm suspension, which you actually do want on a back road. High regen, stability off. Sport mode. Plenty of power. Leaning in on the brakes here, coming in wide. Whoa, what a road. Yeah, it turns way better on the downhills. We should turn around and run this section on the uphill. This is amazing! Yes! Understeering a bit like that, you can just get off the throttle, get the weight on the nose. Rapid performance, especially at high speed. It's amazing how much it picks up power on the higher speed you go. Feels awesome. Very just smooth, safe understeer, but totally cured on power. Pitching it in here. This is where limited slip diffs would help. It does do, even though I have ESP full off, it wasn't letting me just roast the tires out of there. It was, yeah, kind of limiting back, probably for VDIF, which is like when one wheel gets too much wheel spin than the other, you either have to grab brakes or cut power for abuse loads on the differential. And that seems tuned fairly well. I don't think many customers are going to run into this as like a main concern. But I would like to see some improvement here with just a simple limited slip diff in the back would solve literally all of these problems. The other thing I'm just not sure of, and I have to ask the engineers, is the brake pedal simulating brake fade? What I mean by that is this is a brake-by-wire. It's a pure actuation. And usually the way these are tuned is based off of the force that you input with your foot. It will determine the deceleration force of the vehicle, and then it decides how much clamping force to put on the braking system. When your brakes get hot, their effectiveness goes down. Fluid gets hot, pads get hot, the whole system's effectiveness right at the end can go down, and that's a good indication to the driver when you get a squishy brake pedal that, hey, I need to slow down, or back off a little bit. And in this car, because it's brake-by-wire, I know the brakes are warm, because I could smell when I stood out of the car, and of course we've just been ripping on it. The brake pedal feel has not changed that much, which means there is more thermal headroom than I think, which is totally possible, or it's just not simulating brake fade, which means it'll feel great right up until the end, and then you'll be like, oh crap, no brakes. Just don't know how they tuned it. Feature editing, Kyle here. Just wanted to clarify a couple things on the performance side of things. Rapid performance in a straight line, strong braking performance. The Rivian engineers were trying to tell me that they put a lot of effort into the steering feel, and during my impression, I just don't agree with them. It felt fairly vague. Like I could place the car where I want it to get to, but there was almost no weight change between a gentle tip in all the way to understeer, but I could catch the car in an oversteer moment very easily. The ratio I don't have a problem with. The actual tactile feedback through the wheel to me felt significantly worse than R1. Does it actually matter in this segment? Probably not. None of this does. I know I sound a little bit negative ripping on the car, but I'm looking for problems as I'm driving. But in reality, like I got out of the car and I was like, damn, that was so fun. I didn't do a good job communicating that when I was ripping on it, because here I am in a vehicle that's incredibly capable on the dirt and off-road. Clearly, it's 9.6 inches of ground clearance. And I'm on a tire that's pretty not grippy. That range tire is actually pretty garbage for performance driving. And I'm just like backing that thing into corners. You're getting lift off oversteer on the way in. I'm coming out with a little bit of opposite lock or even neutral steer as I'm just working the back end. And I'm driving the car completely on the rear axle, and I can have complete control over where the weight of the car is going just by my right foot. If I'm coming into a corner a little hot and it's, I didn't get the weight on the nose and it's just starting to push, like I'm talking inches on the road, you just lift a little bit and tuck it right in. And you guys know I'm huge about safety driving on mountain roads, never crossing the double yellow. I really hope that a lot of automotive journalists that were there kind of keep it between the mustard and the mayo a bit more than some of the driving that I saw during my time there. But yeah, I think, it's so easy to control the placement in the lane that even when I was ripping on it, you're just millimeter perfect where you want that car placed on the road. I can't wait to bring it out to the mountains of North Carolina here. Can't wait to have it out on track and actually push it and start throwing the weight around and seeing how sideways we can get the thing. But these are all conversations we're having, all cool things we can do with a Rivian SUV. And that's always been kind of the magic of the R1. The R1 has always been incredibly playful and incredibly sporty, and that's a huge accolade for that vehicle. And this carries that same torch. This has the performance cred. And I just wish I was a bit more positive in the evaluation, because I was having so much fun. I was just like nitpicking little things, and I'm like, I didn't really give the viewers enough of a chance to see truly how enjoyable and how hot hatchy this felt. It feels like a lifted hot hatch, but it's got serious performance. Can't wait to see how they continue dialing this thing in. We know the Rivian chassis engineers are amazing, and yeah, they've got a lot of headroom in this platform. Bodes really well for R3X because that'll be largely similar to this car. That thing is just going to be a hoot if it's just this, but dialed up to 11. We are now switching cars. Miles and I are going to take this Catalina Cove, if I've got my naming correct, R2 off-road. These are on the BF Goodrich Trail Terrain TAs. This is an OE off-road tire. They are aired down to under 30 PSI. The owner's manual has a minimum recommendation of 32 PSI to safely drive the vehicle, and then it's sort of proceed at your own risk down to 25 PSI, which is what these are aired down to. Obviously, you can go a little bit lower pressure on the R2 than the R1s, just so you don't roll a bead, because it weighs quite a bit less. So we're going to take it gentle, bring Rivian's car back in one piece, enjoy it, and get a sense of what this thing is like in a off-road setting. Of course, we have open differentials, so anytime we get a wheel in the air or something like that, it's going to grab the brake on the wheel that's up in the air to transfer power to the other side. I'm really curious to hear what that sounds like, of course, because it's going to be using that one box braking system to then actuate the brakes, and also feel the response time and the powertrain split front to rear in some of the off-road drive modes. So let's go out there. My buddy Miles is with me. We're going to have a great time. and just take it nice and easy and see what the R2 can do in some dirt. Miles, you'll know the terrain we're going to be driving today. Are we mostly going to be using all-terrain mode?
Mostly all-terrain. There's some sections of trail where we'll hang around probably 30 miles an hour, but nothing really quicker than that.
Yeah, so all-terrain should be just fine for what we need. Ride feel, soft seems pretty cool, and my understanding is this should be even softer than all-purpose soft.
Yes.
So that'll be really cool to experience. And Regen in high, but of course that's all user preference. So we've got cool displays here to monitor torque distribution. We can see tire pressures down there in the bottom right, and of course motor temperature. You do lose battery temperature in off-road mode, but you're never really stressing the battery at low speed, even if you're going hard throttle at low power. It's the motors you have to worry about more than the battery, so we'll keep an eye on those as well.
Because we're the only car out on trail, we're not going to have any dust coming, so if you want to do all windows down for the trail, it's such a lovely
great
experience.
suggestion. It's so nice out today.
Yeah.
So water fording can go pretty
Half a meter.
pretty deep. I was reading the owner's manual last night.
Yeah.
If you back out of water, no more than 5 kilometers an hour, I think is what it said.
Yep.
And yeah, it's pretty cool. They said the HVAC will auto shut off if you submerge it. So it has a little sensor or a known thing. This is just a little thing, but pretty cool that it's kind of planned for all that stuff. What a cool day out here in the woods. Love it. Don't hit that thing.
Little chipmunk. What a beautiful day on trail. Survival of the fittest.
The worst intro to a video ever. Viewers, we've been out and about just cruising off-road. It's been wonderful. It's so cool to have all the windows down. Having the rear window down especially is just one of the coolest experiences.
And then if you want to pause here.
Yeah, this is a good spot to get some wheel action going.
Yeah.
So we should talk about what's going to happen. I've got the front right up on a hill, back left is tucked. So these two are tucked up with all the traction. The front left and back right are in a droop setting, which means they're the ones that are going to lose traction. Because this car has open differentials, it's going to have to actually grab the physical brake on the tires, the wheels without traction, to transfer torque to the ones with traction. What I want to experience is to see how long it takes for that process to happen and to hear what it sounds like. This uses a one-box braking system, so it'll probably start clicking away. So let's just load up into the throttle. We've got wheel spin. I'm purposefully not.
Gotcha. You're good.
Yeah. And it really does a good job. You just lean into it a little bit more.
Yep.
It's like, oh, I know what you're doing. Click, 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 and you're on your way. So that's fantastic from a powertrain management system if you're not going to put lockers in your car, which I think the R2 gets a pass for not having lockers. Limit slip would be cool. Some sort of mechanical torque vectoring on the rear axle would have been amazing. But maybe there will be a multi-motor version in the future that would eliminate that need. We'll just have to wait and see and keep our fingers crossed and ask Rivian to build a tri or quad motor R2 would be sick. But at least with this dual motor variant, I think you're going to have a very easy time wheeling this thing. It seems to have no problem with a wheel in the air. And actually, Miles has probably spent more time than anyone in R2s with a wheel in the air. So maybe you can share with the viewers just kind of your impression of wheeling these things.
It's super capable. Really, like what we were doing at South by, anything you throw at the car, it just handles. And like you saw there, give it a sec for it to figure itself out, and away we go.
Yeah, it actually feels even significantly quicker than the R1 Gen 2 dual motors. Like that, you get a couple maybe wheel rotations and it's like, oh, you need us to transfer power. And it does a good job, but this is like, boom, rock and roll. So we've got someone just camped out up here. We're going to continue to the right.
Yes, sir.
Sounds great. Are they with your crew or they just... Oh,
that's Sam. He's one of our on-trail support.
Okay. Cool.
And we've got a few different people positioned throughout course just in case anyone needs any support.
Okay, sounds great. Well, hopefully we don't, but also cool to have them there. So thanks, Miles, for the insight on how this thing performs. I've been pretty impressed with it on the trail so far, especially from a powertrain management standpoint. Low speed, high torque applications, thermals haven't been an issue, and so and cogging hasn't been an issue either. The motor is just dead silent and really gets to where it needs to go. The one thing that I'm just dreaming of right now is a sway bar disconnect button, because we're getting a ton of head toss, which is just a downside of this car having to do so much without an adaptive suspension system or an active suspension system. In order for it to handle as well as it did coming over here, this is the trade-off where you get a lot of just body motion on loose terrain, and that can be solved in the aftermarket. So I really can't wait to see what people do with their builds on these things. There seems to be quite a bit of droop that the half shafts can go for before you really reach the max height that you can go. So I can't wait to see what people do with them, but certainly the platform is giving everyone the bones you need to have quite the adventure vehicle. So shout out to Rivian for still seriously considering off-road credibility with their smaller SUV. Viewers, it's time for an experiment. I'm going to have you watch on the outside of the car in this pretty precarious situation where, again, we need to really stress that cross-car torque vectoring with the brake-based power distribution. So what I'm going to do is essentially get the car on this pretty steep ridge. It always looks way less steep on video than in person. I'm going to bring the car up to the right there, and I'm just going to keep it in all-purpose mode and stay on the throttle and let the powertrain systems figure out how to get us up and over this obstacle. Let's do it. So welcome to the inside of the car. We're going to keep stability on in all terrain, and we're going to start to apply throttle and work our way up this hill. So we have some wheel spin. I'm just staying on the throttle, about half throttle, and it's not enough to get it moving. We'll nail it at full power, and that certainly is enough to get it up and going. I'm full power right now, so we need a lot of stall torque. And if you're just patient enough, it really does just figure it out. Testing all 9 inches of ground clearance here, but we should be able to pull ourselves up and over. Come on, baby. I'm sitting wide open. We might just be a ground clearance issue. Let's back it up a little bit. Yeah, we were just beached a little bit there, but it's not a problem. It really is interesting to feel the powertrain distribution in this situation. We'll come up a little bit left, make it a little bit less shallow for the car. Again, standing on the throttle. This is where I need a bit more juice. There it goes. Figured it out. Carry some momentum up, and we've cleared the obstacle for the most part. I really think it needs to get to that lock situation and give you more power a little bit quicker, because my foot was on the floor. It has the capability. The software can improve over time though. So very cool experience to really push it, kind of to its limit in that scenario. But there we go. Just absolute trying to max out the capability of this thing. And it can do it. You just have to, if it's not moving, just keep your foot wide open and it'll get there and it'll figure it out. There's a little clicking coming from the control logic. It's good. Really can do most of what anyone would ever need to do with this type of car. It's no R1, but it's still very capable. And we've got, what was it, 9 and a bit inches of ground clearance?
9.6.
So we can straddle this kind of stuff, hopefully. I'm just going extra slow in case we lay it down.
You're good.
But yeah, the low speed crawling is very impressive. Like if we could take it down to almost nothing and just try to inch it like this, dude, you almost can't even do that in R1. R1 always targets 1 mile an hour minimum, and this is way better powertrain control at low speed. So cool to experience this new Maximus drive unit out here. Really just super stout in these conditions. That's really awesome. Guys, check out where we brought these R2s up to. I'm sure you'll see this in all the other videos as well, but Miles and I were lucky enough to be the first ones up here on the program. Since we were the first ones on the first wave, they've been up here all week working it, checking the trail, making sure it's all dialed in. So huge shout out to those guys for really finding a fantastic trail to showcase the capabilities of the R2. This is exactly the type of place an R2 customer would bring their vehicle, especially living out here in the mountains. Many R2s will be sold in Colorado and Utah, and a lot of the trails are representative of this one right here. And it does an amazing job over the rocks. And pretty impressed with the tires as well. These BF Goodrich Air Down. We went through some gotcha rocks, a lot of pointy stuff, and at least knock on wood, we're not going to say the words out loud, but they're all still holding the same air pressure that we left with. So hopefully that'll be the case at the end, but you just can't beat the rocky views. It's so cool out here. and the R2 looks right at home, doesn't it? It's pretty awesome. This is some real rock crawling right here.
And we'll
right
take
line.
this right line as well.
Yep. Kind of throw it up right so we don't pinch that tire. That's a really nice view. So here, this is a good opportunity again. Laying into it, just crawls itself up. No way.
Yes, sir.
Very impressive. I don't think anything else in this car's class that comes to the top of my head could do this. Like even 4Runners have less ground clearance. We were just checking that. You were letting me know. And even from an electric standpoint, like no Mach-E's getting up here like this. No Model Y's doing this. This thing is seriously stout from a setup perspective. I mean, it made that look like nothing.
Nah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and you can just step her down front and step her down back.
Man, amazing one pedal drive. See it doing torque split there. I'm going as gentle as I can. It's so good. It's so good. No way. Yeah, low speed, rocky one pedal drive. Unbelievable. And that's the benefit of doing brake-by-wire right there. That was an A+ brake tuning in that situation. So let's head down. What is the name of this one? The Adventure Bypass?
The Adventure Bypass.
I like it. So we're gonna flex it out on the way down, and Miles promises me some cool obstacles on this one.
Yes, sir.
This is legit.
Yeah.
It feels like Hell's Revenge backwards.
Exactly. And then you'll start to feel your left front tire come up off the ground.
Yep.
And the transfer over.
Super smooth. Look at that. Nice. One pedal drives, trying to figure out where it can work to slow us down.
You should be able to one pedal this whole thing.
Oh yeah, I never touched the brake through there. It's doing everything. It's clicking away, distributing brake force. I am just so impressed with the powertrain calibration of this car in an off-road setting. To be honest, I wasn't actually as impressed on road at low speed, but off road is just like totally dialed. So, couple little things on my clutch disconnect that I'd like to see maybe just fix when you're coming down off the highway to low speed. But out here, whoa, this is seriously engineered for this kind of stuff. I've noticed the motors stay relatively cool, but when we were doing some of the real steep rock climbing stuff, we got this one up to like 215 on the front. Front definitely works a little bit harder than the rear, especially in regen situations like this here, where it's going to try to, you know, all the weight's on the nose, and that's where it's going to get the most effectiveness. But you can even see it climbing a little bit in this regen scenario. But so far they've cooled down very, very quickly, and I wouldn't say there's any indication that motor temperature should be anything anyone should be worried about at the moment. This is like a trail built for the R2. You guys didn't actually build this, right?
Nope.
This was just here.
This is just here.
This is so cool.
And then through here we'll stay high left.
Okay.
And then we'll come back down.
Sounds good. It's doing a great job transitioning the brake forces. Should get a nice little wheel action here. There we go. And I'm just trying to stop there just to see what it would do.
Yep.
And then transitions to auto hold. Tip in. Dude, you can just inch it everywhere. It's just dragging.
So we'll go cameras here.
Yep.
And then as the brightness adjusts, we'll have a step down of the left wheel.
That's what it looks like. We're
Yeah.
really just dragging the rears at the moment. I might need to give it a little bit more to unlock them, actually.
And you can come a little left, just a hair, and straighten out. And then drop.
Nice.
And then...
And underbody can handle it.
Yep. And then we'll creep. The back end will come down. Beautiful.
Dude, so cool. So cool. Yeah, those rear tires were doing everything they could to hold us back. It is really steep on the downhill, of course.
And then you can stay left.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this makes me think we've got to get this thing. You want to go left the whole way down?
We can go right, we can go left. If we go right, we'll go high, or if we go left, we'll ride the left side of the trail.
Yeah, I'll just hold all the way left. We have a little dip here.
Step down.
Yeah, can't wait to try this on snow and ice to see the Regen drag control at low speed. In a situation like this, I'm coming off the pedal completely. Oh, you know what I'm doing, Miles?
What's that?
I'm hitting the cruise control, the set speed.
Ah.
Is that true?
I don't think. Oh, that's just on the.
That's on this
Halo haptic wheel. So.
Because I was off the throttle there, and we were just moving. So what? Because it felt like it unlocked and just rolled. But
maybe.
The only thing that I hit was this.
That wouldn't have set in the cruise control, so we might have just had a little bit of momentum coming down.
Yeah, it could be.
But your Halo haptic wheel.
It's not going to adjust vehicle speed. It's only this.
Yeah,
right here.
Activation through the drive.
But
stock.
even for like an off-road cruise control, which this doesn't have.
Correct.
Okay. So other than that weird little hiccup at the bottom and where we were just dragging the rear tires for a tiny bit where it needed a bit more throttle to get them unlocked, the one pedal drive in an off-road scenario is operating at world-class level. That is really, really well done. Those couple little anomalies could be down to surface type, could be what we were just on, of course. It'll require more time, more testing, and comparisons between R1 and this and other vehicles, especially with other brake-by-wire systems. Viewers, you join me in yet another R2. This is my third one of the day to experience, which is great. The phone chargers are epic. You just throw your phone down, they mag safe into place, and they do not move. That is a great upgrade over any other Rivian before. The air conditioning system, while it is quiet on the outside, it's quite noisy on the inside, the fan noise through the vents, I keep mentioning, and it doesn't actually seem to be that powerful. Let's go max cooling. Fan on max, low. I'm getting a breeze. So maybe the system, oh, it's picking up pace. There we go. Now it's rocking. They told me the HVAC will have another final round of just tuning, looking at solar loading, which I had a little complaint about, and some other stuff soon. By the way, should we just mention how convenient it is to have two giant cup holders in this thing? That's the cup holders, the glove boxes in this thing. It's awesome. In terms of drive mode setup, we are going to run, because we're on the sporty road. Sport, firm damper, stability control off, and regen in high. I am also going to bring my steering wheel out towards me. And we are going to be following my buddy Joel Fetter, who's in front of me. So let's go have some fun cruising with my buddy in some R2s. Joel's moving. And you know, you can't beat having that much fun, can you? In something that we just went off-roading. That's a very unusual attribute to have in a vehicle. So again, take my criticisms as points of small improvements on an already great vehicle. The overall experience here, though, other than a few nitpicks that I'm sure will get worked out, is just top level car. This is the most exciting car of the year. The rear wiper, I haven't even played around with it yet, just pops up. It stays up out of its holster place for a little while, and then it will fold back down in. There's also a winter mode for the rear wiper, by the way, that you can set it so it doesn't ever go back into that little housing in the back of the car. And if you get a standard R2, you don't get drop glass, which means you don't get a wiper that goes down, just a physical connected rear wiper in the center of the glass like a normal SUV would have. So I'm sorry my video is not the most cohesive. It's certainly not going to be the best edited, and it's certainly not going to be your high-level overview of the vehicle like some of my automotive reviewer colleagues can do. But I hope I've been able to give you enough nerd sphere information talking about the dynamics, talking about things that matter to at least an enthusiast owner. And of course, we didn't get to experience charging or anything like that, but maybe I can swing by the charging station with it. Let's put it in preconditioning just in case we have the opportunity to do a charging session. So here we are preconditioning the battery pack. And there you have it. I've got some more clips to put at the end of this video, just some random stuff, but big props to Rivian on engineering a great car. A truly great car, which this segment has needed for so long. Seems to prioritize all-wheel drive during preconditioning events. That solves that problem. We're good to go. Sound system is better when I use Apple Music rather than Bluetooth. So the sound system I have a better impression of than when I listened to it earlier on in the video. And so that's going pretty well. It's not a great sound system. It's not a sound system I look forward to listening to. It's above economy car levels, which is more than what you can say when the R1 Gen 2 launched. That was just trash. It's way better than that. It's nowhere near the R1 premium audio at the moment, and even that's not that great. So I'd be curious to see how this evolves over time, especially at high volumes is where it seems to kind of fall apart. In middle volume level, it feels totally acceptable and a fitting sound system, maybe for the entry-level model, not the premium or performance, especially when compared to Tesla audio. Like Model Y sound system's so good. This has a pretty high bar to compete up against. Yeah, so other than that, I used UHF on the highway the whole way. I was jamming out to a bunch of different genres and artists and different types of music to get an understanding of how it feels and sounds. And now we're heading over to the Rivian Adventure Network charger. I keep wanting to go here to raise the speed. And try. Well, viewers, I have brought this R2 over to the Rivian Adventure Network here in Park City. It's a huge station where they have NACS and CCS mixed. Not only is this my first time charging the R2, interestingly, this has a nice little indent on where to push. I played around with the R2 standard yesterday, and it did not have that indent. Maybe it was just an earlier version of the charge port door. This is my first time using a Rivian NACS handle, and it's from Huber Schuner, so it's their NACS. It's 600 amp capable. Nice, 1000 volts. Feels pretty good. I've never used the Huber Schuner NACS cable either. All many firsts here. Let's plug in our first charge of the R2. No way. Plug and charge is going. We are at 44% state of charge, so nothing major. I do need to put it into kilowatt hours added. And kilowatts instead of miles per hour. I can't understand why Rivian defaults to miles per hour. I just think it's bad practice to try to teach new EV people how many miles of range you add in a period of time. You should just understand power levels, I think, but I know that there's some difference of opinion there. We are charging 1.3 kilowatts, ripping 15. What a monster. Really curious to see. Yeah, this R1 is coming in screaming, and we are now charging up. Anyway, I'll have the full graph for you guys from 44% up for a little bit, but this is now officially the fastest we've ever charged an R2 because we've never charged an R2 before. But so far, looking great here at 44%. No way. That's a good looking curve right there. I mean, it could just be a little peak because we just plugged in. I don't know if there's a boost profile, but damn, 187 kW at 44%. Strong performance for this. This is actually better than I was thinking. So now it's time for an informal DC fast charging test of the Rivian R2. The camera angle will change so you can actually see SoC a little bit easier right here. And it's holding pretty big power. We saw a peak of 190 kilowatts just ahead of 50%, and then you'll see it just follows a nice curve on the way down. What we don't know is really what happens between 0 and 45% SoC. My guess is I guess there's two options of what could happen. The first is you'll see somewhere in the neighborhood of 170 kilowatts when starting out, and it'll probably creep its way up to the 190 range, kind of like what we saw. And what we saw basically makes me think that there's a current cap, an amperage cap on the charging performance, and as we were gaining pack voltage, we were getting a little bit more performance. I don't know what the pack voltage of the R2 is, which I'm not sure if we were getting peak performance at, if 190 kilowatts is all it'll actually do, or if that was after it had already step down off of a ledge, which is very common for newer electric cars that haven't gone through final charge curve testing. And it was doing another sort of constant current, constant voltage. It's called a CCCV charging curve, where it will kind of gain in overall kilowatts over a period of time for a set current level, because of course pack voltage is rising as you're adding energy, and then stair step its way down. Too early to tell, but what I will say is the charging performance, look, we're not talking Chinese car, we're not talking iX3, Volvo EX60, anything like that. But when we compare it to other cars that are sort of in the previous generation of charging performance, let's just say, it's really not bad. It could have been way worse, let's just put it that way. Still, to get, 80 kilowatts at 80%, that was awesome to see. And then it kind of falls off a ledge after 80. It's hard to say exactly what thermal performance we were getting. I talked to my buddy Tom Malogny from State of Charge. I also talked to my buddy Dan from What's Inside. Both of them got completely different charging performances from what we saw here. As far as I can tell, this is the best charging performance out of all three by quite a bit. And so I think just having the pack really warm after ripping on it, preconditioning it, really helped. And I should also say that we didn't notice any major thermal dips or weird thermal behavior from the R2. And here we are unplugging the R2 after our charging session. 33 minutes to get 50 kilowatt hours to go from 44 to 95% state of charge. This is just a non-powered charge port. It does feel kind of plasticky. Maybe not the best thing in the world. Flashlight or USB, whatever you choose to put in there. USB charger. And there we go. We're there. Let's take a look at battery temps. 119 into drive and back on a road trip. Where should we go? Now, I've actually got to return the car. Would be fun to drive it somewhere far though, and I know that's going to happen a ton on this channel. So stay tuned for all the R2 trips. There's the Rebel R1T, looking great. Okay, time to talk about some power electronics. So before, you had your onboard charger, your DC to DC, and your inverter for AC loads. All three of these things have now been put into essentially a PCS, or what they're calling, I can't even remember, that's the penthouse on the battery pack. Everyone's got their own name for it. But this is essentially completely developed in-house with all in-house componentry, including in-house onboard charger, in-house DC to DC, and in-house 11 kilowatt bidirectional AC inverter. There is a cooling plate singular on the bottom, and it's just complete parts reduction from R1 Gen 2 to R2. I'm sure you can imagine something like this coming to R1 Gen 3, I would think, but this whole idea we've seen come from BMW, we've seen Tesla do this, Cybertruck, of course, Model 3, others really went hardcore into this, but it's so much has been packaged, all of this, essentially into this one singular unit that sits underneath the rear seat. So it's designed to come apart, to be serviceable. All of your power management, low voltage and high voltage, is done through this one particular unit. You also have a 12-volt battery that sits right over here. It is AGM, still not lithium, which I thought was interesting. But overall, just a really cool designed housing to handle all of the electronics needs for the car. And I'm really curious to see if there's any weak points, if there's any failure issues in these. For some reason, electric cars in general seem to suffer from, just in general, onboard charger failures, DC to DC. We've seen ICCU problems from, Hyundai, for example. And so by Rivian going with new componentry in-house, we just have to keep our fingers crossed that it's all durability tested and proven and will just run well over time. And I think based off of the reliability of a lot of this hardware, their targets are set very high. You don't hear about R1 onboard charger failures often, or really anything to do with the power electronics. They are very stout. So I'm really hoping that they took the time to engineer this thing to handle the abuse loads, but only time will tell. To show you guys some of the configuration options that you can choose on R2. At launch, you'll be able to choose between these two wheels. You have a BF Goodrich Trail Terrain TA, and this is a 20-inch wheel with a 255/60 R20, of course, Rivian spec tire. This is the range and sort of performance wheel and tire, 255 55 R21, with I think a great looking wheel. I've seen pretty positive comments on both of these wheels that are offered for the R2 in the launch and the performance version. Later on, vehicles will be launching with these. This is the 20-inch, probably going to be, if I had to guess, maybe the volume wheel and tire. And I think it looks pretty good. Pretty meaty tire on this thing. It's a Pirelli Scorpion MS, and it is a 255/60 R20. It's an M&S rated tire. Looks pretty good, just a nice general all-season type tread, maybe even more on the performance side. And then the standard wheel and tire, which is available really only in the rear-wheel drive version as far as I'm aware, is the 19-inch wheel. In all of the standard cars, that wheel will be optional, including the base one. And this is running a Pirelli Scorpion MS as well, but with a huge freaking sidewall on this thing. It's still a Rivian OE tire, as with all of these, and this is a 255/65 R19. So a real thick sidewall. I wonder if range will actually even go up with this. Might have too much tire oscillation with that much sidewall. In terms of other accessories and personalization options, you have your vehicle to load adapter here. So you go NACS to NEMA 520, two of those. Really think this should have a NEMA 1450 outlet for 11 kilowatt vehicle to vehicle. They need to do that. Screen protectors, because apparently people drop their screens inside of cars, maybe for kids kicking it. And then you have a launch edition specific key card right here. So that will come in all of the launch versions. Of course, your flashlight and USB-C charger. Some of this is carryover accessory from R1. And then this is the launch key. And this is the standard carabiner. I believe both of these will be accessories. Again, your cell phone is going to be your primary key for this vehicle. Some organizers, a back end sort of induction cooktop situation, which looks pretty cool if I'm honest. This is awesome. I've never played around with it much, but that is awesome to see. Here you have your interior trims. On your lighter color, you have this really nice, see if I can zoom in for you guys. I think this really nice light wood texture. If Rivian was smart, they would have launched with the light color interior at the very beginning, but apparently it's delayed. So all of us who wanted really early R2 will have to go with the dark interior, which I think is kind of a shame. I personally hate dark interiors in cars, and so it's all personal preference. Some people will be just fine with it. And then if you spec the base model, you will just get this texturized, I think very high quality dash material that still looks absolutely beautiful and still has sort of that bronzish metal look that you can see. I'm not seeing much difference between these two. Is this a bit brighter than that one? I don't think so. Maybe just ever so slightly different, not sure. And then you have your colors. Forgive me for not knowing all the names, but is it Exter Silver? White? I don't even remember. Glacier? It's a dark gray, midnight black, launch green, forest green, borealis, something cove, Catalina Cove. All shades of nothing super exciting. The purple's probably the most exciting, but it's still pretty dark, and I don't think it's going to have a very high take rate. For me, I think the silver actually looks pretty good in this car, and I personally love launch green. It's one of my favorite colors, so that's the one I would want. And then over here on display, they have the light color interior, which is not launching at launch, unfortunately. We featured this exact car on the channel before when Scott and Logan filmed the full R2 drive. It had that weird steering wheel centerpiece that's non-representative. It's just like a little bit more grainy. I don't know if you guys can see that there. It's a little bit more grainy than the production one will be, I'm told. Anyway, still looks pretty great. I love this interior. To me, this is the interior to have. Light colored seats, light wood, just looks so nice and airy. I wish they could pair it with a dark headliner. I do not like light headliners. This is just my preference. And then they have this really cool rooftop tent accessory that I'm sure will not be cheap. If they end up offering this, I could see us getting this for Scott for maybe a birthday or Christmas present sometime. There's HVAC up here, USB ports. It's pretty freaking awesome. You can open up the whole roof with a sunroof there. Just absolutely really cool. And because, of course, The R2 has vehicle to load. You can power accessories like the rooftop tent, which again, such a cool looking device. And also, you know, accessories like a fridge freezer combination for like this one from Dometic. This is the standard one versus the premium one. You can see no folding rear glass, standard wiper back here, which I think works pretty well. To show you in the back of it, still power trunk. And you really don't lose much with the standard. No rear heated seats, a little bit lesser sound system that, at least in this car, I don't think it's fully dialed in. It really did not sound good, but it sounded very prototype-y, so I don't think it's finalized. This is just more for here for style to show what a standard R2 looks like. This is representative of the $45,000 version that will launch with a smaller battery pack. It's been confirmed at least that Rivian is leaning towards not offering an LFP or a different style battery pack. It's just going to be a depopulated version of their 88 kilowatt hour usable pack, similar to how Tesla does it with their standard models. It will not be software locked, is at least the intention. I'm believing it's just going to have a couple strings removed, maybe 10, 15 kilowatt hours down off of the big pack, which I think is totally acceptable because the 88 kilowatt hours usable is a lot of energy for this car and this size category. Still has the frunk that has soft close and many other benefits as well. No perforated seats, no cooled seats. But I think the interior looks fine in the base one. I think a lot of people are going to be very happy with this car. You can always tell if it's a base one when it has dark interior and a light headliner, because the premium ones, if you get dark interior, you also do get dark headliner, like in all the launch ones that you guys will see around here. So let me just walk you through a couple more things that I think are pretty interesting to discuss, and that would be the battery pack here. So the battery pack here is 88 kilowatt hours usable, 4695 cells, which are pretty big cans, very similar to the BMW iX3 using 4695s. They use a side plate cooling rather than a bottom plate cooling to reduce the gradient temperature throughout the pack. It's of course fully liquid cooled. This is where the penthouse goes, or they call it like a powerhouse up here with all of your power electronics that sits under the rear seat. So that's where you have your rear suspension system, dual permanent magnet motors. Here's where you can see them right here, which is kind of cool. And the actual power split is about 60% capable on the rear, 40% capable in the front. Obviously, it will be dynamic as you go, but Rivian promises a really quick clutch disconnect on the front axle. This is the proper axle to disconnect up front. So it's a primary drive rear-based vehicle, which is great. And this is an oil-cooled 3-in-1. That means you have inverter, motor assembly, and gearbox all in one unit right here. I mentioned oil cooling all the way to the rotor itself because they do use permanent magnets, and you do have rare earth magnets in this particular one. Using a pretty standard McPherson strut setup, brake-by-wire. I'm really interested to see how that feels. I don't know where this will go in the video, but that's going to be a real key thing for me to play around with. You can see here you have a semi-adaptive damper. This is just a single valve damper, and essentially when you go to ride feel in soft, moderate, or firm, when you hit the throttle or brake or steering, that will also adjust how quickly this can feed forward and get some stiffness into this thing so that you can have a better responsive vehicle. You can see pretty chunky sway bars front and rear. I think if folks are going to do a lot of off-roading, we're going to see a quick sway bar disconnect. If you're in the aftermarket, make a sway bar front and rear disconnect, just like a quick link. Otherwise, this will just be basically pull this off, zip tie it here so it doesn't get snagged on anything, and you'll get quite a bit more droop out of the car, much more articulation, which will be great. Pretty stout looking steering system with multiple redundant connections here for the power assist. This is where your rack comes into. Looks like a really nice steering system. Looking forward to experiencing how that feels in the hand. Brakes are quite large. You can see the pads here look pretty big. You do have to pull this caliper off to do a pad replacement job, and I guess this is just part of the carrier to hold this whole front subframe together. It is a 3-point mounted motor rather than a 4-point mounted motor. So that's also kind of interesting as well. So that's really the front carrier of this whole thing. Then basically back here is where your heat pump will sit. It is a different heat pump from a normal R1. And they say it should be much quieter, much less annoying. I'm going to be running this thing with climate on full rip to see how it feels. And this way you can actually see the motor exploded, which is cool. This is the Maximus drive unit. And I guess we'll work our way left to right. So you have your main inverter drivers in here, silicon carbide on the rear, IGBTs up front. And that makes sense from a cost and efficiency standpoint. The rear drive unit should always be silicon carbide for especially those light load operations. Whenever the front motor needs to be in, that's usually when you're going wide open throttle or it's on for such an infrequent period of time. It doesn't make sense to put that much cost in the front drive unit. You can keep this silicon carbide back here. Then you've got a really short runner right here for your bus bars to get over to your stator windings. And this is a continuous winding through here, which looks really cool. And just having a really nice short bus bar connection means you reduce heat loss and also your connection points through here. So this should help with thermal stability as well. If you look at the rotor, it's a permanent magnet rotor. You can see these blades are offset mostly for NVH, so you don't get a weird cogging or buzzing sound through them. And of course, a shaft that runs right through the center. And that's pretty beefy that it goes all the way through to your gear set. And your open differential on this side, yes, we would have loved lockers, but they do brake-based torque vectoring on this car, and so it's just an open differential after your reduction goes through. And you have your heat exchanger and some other stuff, some basic oil fill there. So it's essentially a 3-in-1 unit that's very compact, seems to be pretty power dense, and I'm really hoping for great reliability. This is also tied in with the full thermal system of the rest of the car, of course. So this can run slightly out of phase to produce more waste heat to then heat up the battery pack during a preconditioning event, and you can share power throughout and cooling throughout the vehicle with this drive unit right here. This seems really, really, really well done. Back over to the battery pack, I just think it's such an awesome decision to go with a big can these days, because you do get so much more structure out of going, safety I should say, from a side impact with a cylindrical cell rather than a prismatic cell. You also can do a good job with cooling, but if you go too big, then you can develop thermal hotspots inside the cell. So my guess is once you thermal load this battery pack, we'll have to see how it does in real world. But once you thermal load this battery pack, it's going to take a minute to cool down. So I bet it's going to have better thermals than the R1 in terms of performance without derating. However, once you get this thing really hot, it might be harder to bring it back down to a cooler temperature. That's just my guess. We'll have to see how it goes. Could be kind of interesting to see. Is there anything else here that I should show you guys? They are not talking about a lot of the power electronics that they had at Rivian Autonomy Day, so none of the big chip stuff. They're talking about their 200 tops experience management module, the XMM, which essentially takes all of the R1 Gen 2 into these smaller, more powerful chipsets. It's a step above the R1 Gen 2, but it is nowhere near what the R2 will come with in the future. And this is kind of a confusing thing because they're launching the R2 and Rivian's saying it will be nerfed from a processing standpoint and it will be nerfed from a sensor standpoint. There's no LiDAR on this vehicle. It is radar camera only, no ultrasonics. It uses better radars around the vehicle to look for close range proximity. You'll notice no parking sensors around it, which is kind of cool. I guess the question is, should you go for one now or wait for a LiDAR unit? And from what everyone is telling me here is that there's going to be no functional difference for the vehicles for years to come. So if you're going to lease one, it doesn't matter. Just get one now. I mean, I guess it's up to you. You can do whatever you want. But it sounds like a lot of the Autonomy Day, the LiDAR conversation, the hands-free driving that will come in a few years really will come in a few years. So it's kind of like, even if you get a R2 with LiDAR delivered, are you going to have a vehicle that functions differently than this vehicle? The answer is no, not for some time after launch. For me, because we switch cars so much, we're planning on having an R2 for about a year's time to do a long-term test for you guys. And then it'll probably go to my sister, actually. We'll keep you guys updated on that situation. Not worried about it. We just want an early one, and we're going to get it, of course, and run it through everything. And that works from our situation. If you're going to buy a car and keep it for 15 or 20 years, then maybe you wait. I think it just comes down to your own personal situation. It really does not matter to me one way or the other. This is the black premium interior. It looks really nice here in the performance trim, dark headliner, dark seats. Some people like a dark interior. I'm not one of them. So I would actually like to see if after we get ours, if we could swap in the light colored seats if they hit the Rivian shop for a retrofit. Feels really cool to be around these cars, and I'm excited to play around with them over the next little while. I don't know if this is going at the beginning or the end of the video, but I just got here, got to play around with this stuff, and man, there's so much to soak in. So big props to the Rivian team for always talking about the technology, how the vehicles are made, a lot of the chipset stuff. This is where a lot of the core knowledge of the company is, which is way different than most other automakers out there. And so at times it feels like Rivian's going slow, especially in autonomy and other areas as well. But you have to remember, they're doing it pretty much all in-house, not relying on outside companies. And to me, that's something that should be commended. That is a really cool thing. Also, how cool does the R2 look in launch screen? It's just a beautiful looking car right here. So there you guys go. That's some of the tech, that's some of the batteries, that's some of the motors, and that's some of the cars. Fun times. Sitting in here, there's also these really cool window controls so you can raise and lower the back glass. It's actually the opposite of what you would think. So you pull to go up. To me, this works for my brain, but I know a lot of people don't love that. But you can control all 5 windows. With a one touch, everything goes down. Ooh, everything reaches its bottom point at the same time. That's nice. Do they all reach the up point at the same time? No way! They're all time synced. That is attention to detail. That's amazing. You have your hazard button right here, and then your brightness right there. I was just playing around figuring out how to make the car reset. In R1, you would hold this button and push the leftmost scroll wheel. That doesn't work here. So what you do is you push this one to that way and this one that way. So both to the outside, and then it will go through a restart process. So that works pretty well. That's a good way to do it. Let's try it. Yep, so I just held this one to the right and that one to the left. If you put a lot of force in these scroll wheels, you feel the electric motor feedback. They honestly feel great when you're within the Rivian systems, but as soon as you start pushing and tugging on them, you feel like the force of the little motors in there, and that actually kind of feels a little buzzy and unpremium. But this is going through its restart process. I just started it, so let's see how long it takes and what the boot up looks like. I'm sure this will change through future software iterations, but it's always good to know how to soft reset or hard reset a vehicle. This is just more of an infotainment reset, I think. There's probably a harder reset in there, but this is the one the customers would need to do. Just kind of both scroll wheel reset. It's coming back to life now. We can see if there's any cool startup animations. So I've hit brake to start. All the telltales pop up on that screen. That looks a little clunky, doesn't it? There we go. Now the software is loading, and it just kind of fires right into life. So interesting way to do it, but glad we figured out. Hold that one that way and this one this way, and that's how you do a reset on the Rivian R2. Some ancillary clips. This is my max cooling test. So the cooling in the seat is so strong, the fan makes quite a bit of noise actually, and even vibrates the seat, especially in this area, quite a bit of vibration. Kind of feels like a massage, no complaints. But this thing is really pumping some air, and I've got the cooling set to low, maximum possible cooling going on here, and I really want to know what the heat pump sounds like. Dead silent. Timon, if you're editing this, don't put any audio voice isolation stuff. Genuinely dead silent. The heat pump's running at such a low RPM compared to R1. R1 would get up to what, 6,000-7,000, get right up there. This feels like it's running at like 2,500 RPM. Heat pump's mounted on the firewall right here in the center, basically. You can hear the heat intake coming in. What's really loud is the fan noise in the cabin. So this vent noise is the loudest part. But I'm just amazed at how much quieter the exterior noise is compared to this from a cooling perspective. Shout out Rivian for really working on that. That was needed, and I'm glad that's fixed. Also want to talk about the sound system. Sound system it's not dialed in yet. it's good at moderate volume, low to moderate volume, but as soon as you get into the 20s out of 30, the bass goes away. And again, I haven't listened to it that long, and I was using Bluetooth, so I'm not sure if maybe there's a bug with the Bluetooth connection, but I'm not excited to like jam out in this car. It'll be fine for general listening. It'll be fine for podcasts. And there's still a lot of things Rivian can do to improve the sound system over time. The mids and highs I think are okay. It's just lacking a lot of that deep, awesome bass that I love in premium sound systems. And it kind of holds there with the song until you get to that mid 20 range, and then the bass almost seems to just fall off and the highs get really loud. So there's something about super loud listening that needs some tuning, but if you listen to just normal music volume, you're going to be just fine with the sound system, even at launch. And that's something that can improve massively over time. I should also mention these window switches, super cool that you can raise and lower them right here, all 5 of them, or just the back glass right there. Super great. And yeah, this car is seemingly pretty well sorted. And all of my issues can almost be fixed with software. And I'm just amazed at how quiet the cooling is. That's sitting at max AC right now. I barely hear it. That's wild. Here you can see this R2 accessorized with cool watercraft on the roof, also bikes off the back. These also bikes, cool that you can put 2 of them on this bike rack right here. Can't wait to make more videos with these. We already have a full review on the also bike on our channel, but yeah, this thing looks great, fully kitted up with all the accessories, doesn't it? We've got the bed action inside, and this car currently doesn't have a camp mode, but it will come through an OTA update, just like you would expect in the R1. Pretty similar. Cool padding right there, and that all looks cool, kitted out with everything up on the roof. Great to see, and I guess that's all representative of stuff you can fit inside the car. The video is now ruined because this guy up here, hello and welcome. How you doing, Tom? All right, it is 1 a.m. before this video goes live, and I was going to do like a big write-up, and maybe I'll do more podcasts about the car in the future. This is already a 2-hour-long video. It's an amazing car. R2 nails it. All of the problems I had with it that I can think of can completely be fixed with a over-the-air software update patch. Some of them matter more than others. The HVAC system really needs some work. The fact it doesn't have pet mode, keep climate, camp mode, that's a problem. And it will be fixed. The sound system can still get some improvements, I'm told, over the air. The weird regen behavior. I don't know if I actually even covered it in this video, but when I came down that hill and we lost regen off-roading and it kind of free-rolled, I talked to some folks and they were like, oh, that's kind of a known bug they've been chasing and they think they've got it figured out. So it feels like R2, and I was kind of commenting on this in some other stuff where I'm like, the prototype builds rolled off the line not that long ago. It's very common for like a German automaker to do 2 to 3 years of physical vehicle testing before it goes on sale. The R2 has done like a few months of vehicle testing, and then they put it into production, and then they can still fix stuff in post. And if you watch yesterday's video on just the topic of software and how cars need to be more connected, I think a lot of automakers fall into the trap where they're like, let's get the hardware dialed. The early customers are going to be chill. They can deal with the bugs, and then, they'll fix it in post-production. And the R2 feels better than that. The R2 feels like a fairly sorted car, but there's a few elements of it that will still be fixed and fine-tuned and massaged probably over the next 1 year before it's a completely dialed-in, polished package. The good news is Rivian's already proven that they will software update a vehicle. They will work to improve it as long as you and us and others put the pressure on them, right? If you really speak up for what needs to be fixed, they are incredible listeners. They are incredibly humble, and they will get to work fixing your problems, even if they don't agree with you all the time. They don't always agree with me, of course. But I think a difference in opinion is sometimes good. And they always take that into account, which I massively appreciate. There's also going to be improvements to dog mode with interior pet cam and other stuff that I cannot wait to find out. But then there's like head scratchers from a software standpoint where it's like Rivian Assistant won't even be available until I think fall or late summer, I was told. That's already in my like Gen 1 R1. How hard could that be to port it over? I just don't know. And so sometimes it feels like maybe the Rivian team is spread too thin. But their focus really needs to be on not just R2, but their existing products as well. So I think we're going to learn a lot about how the company is going to scale and how they're going to handle their consumer premium grade vehicles, R1, their commercial grade vehicles in the vans, and now their high volume vehicles with a, I would argue, just as demanding, if not more demanding customer from their R2 line. And people wanting updates and wanting autonomy updates and wanting Rivian Assistant and sound system and so on and so forth. I can't wait to see how that all plays out. From a driving dynamics portion, which is what this video was all about, there's nothing about driving this car or experiencing it that would stop me from wanting one. There's little tuning decisions. There's little things here and there that I'd love to play around with. There's a lot of potential for aftermarket, both on the performance side and the off-road. I think we're going to see a lot of people build these things, a lot of sway bar disconnect options. You could probably fit a 34-inch tire on this without any modification, and we're going to play around with a lot of that stuff here as well and just seeing what we can do. Because I think this is going to be a great starting point for aftermarket applications. My buddy Drew at Martian Wheels is already working on wheels for this thing, and I think they may even be, like the test set may even be on their way over to the office right now. Just so many cool things. And the car overall, while you hear me nitpick over and over in this video, it's a solid offering. This is a car that I can't wait to recommend to all of my friends, to my family. We're going to be buying one as soon as we can, of course, and it'll actually go to my sister as the current plan after a year of ownership. She really wants an electric car, and Rivian is an aspirational brand to her. She loves the image. She loves the look. She has a beach, lives on the beach. She's, does all that stuff. And so it's just a great car with the rear drop glass, with her dog that she really sees herself driving. And that's kind of the cool part is, even if it drove terribly, even if it charged terribly, even if it, had some major problems, Rivian is still going to be able to sell so many of these. It just so happens that not only does it look cool and they have a great brand image and it's an aspirational product to drive or to be seen with, it also just drives well. It's just going to be a fantastic daily driver. And it's a daily driver that you can push to the limit on a back road or probably on track. We'll get it out there. And you can take it on adventures off-road and still have fairly good capability to go to pretty much anywhere you would ever need to bring a car. It's going to be a great one-car solution for so many people. And watching back and editing this video, I feel like I was a little bit overly critical in my evaluation and not pointing out so many of the positives. So we'll definitely do more videos on this car. I'll be doing much more segmented out content where we'll do a track review, we'll do a specific off-road review, we'll do a daily driving review, especially when we have our own car and I can live with it and give you all the comparisons. I've arranged a Model Y performance to compare it against and other vehicles in its segment as well. We have an R1 to compare it against, and I can't wait to just run it through everything. So let me export this video, get it uploaded for you guys. It's just kind of 2 hours of just nerding out with the car. And if you happen to stick through the whole video, comment bubbles, because I doubt anyone has sat through this whole video, especially with all like 60 content creators posting at the same time. But it's my style. It's how I do it. And I've tried to change. I've tried to make things more concise, and I just can't do it. This is just how I do it. And maybe I should stop worrying about that. Plenty more content to come that I'll be a little bit more proud of than this video, but appreciate y'all joining. It was fun ripping on the mountain road in this car, and see you on another one again soon. Good work to Rivian, really. I know the video doesn't sound as positive as my lasting impression of the car. I cannot wait to get back in R2. Cannot wait to get back in it. See ya. Bye.